had to work 3 pretty long days about 6 months ago, and at the end of each one I decided I'd watch a film from the Cornetto trilogy. Because they're good. Sue me. But as I sat on my sofa post-Hot Fuzz, just feeling so goddamn sleepy, a troubling thought occurred to me. There was something haunting me about this movie, and I couldn't quite identify what. So to lighten the mood, I spent 100 years trying to navigate the longest DVD menu known to man, and I watched the bloopers. And as I saw Nick Frost and Simon Pegg pretend to make out for the 15th time, I finally realized what was haunting me about Hot Fuzz. Is the whole movie just a gay joke? But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Hot Fuzz is a movie directed by Edgar Wright and starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and a bunch of other British actors who you'll look at and say, what's he in again? And also Academy Award winner Olivia Colman. It's the second of a 3-film deal with this particular creative team, dubbed the Cornetto trilogy, because they all really wanted to get free cornettos at the premiere. This particular movie is about the police, and also a cult. Spoilers, by the way. Nicholas Angel is the best police officer in the Met, and he's making everyone else look bad, so they have to send him to the sleepy village of Sandyford to get rid of him. There he meets famed Point Break fan Danny Butterman, who is also a police officer, albeit a much, much worse one. The two form an unlikely friendship while uncovering a secret cult run by the Neighborhood Watch. Proof that you should never, under any circumstances, trust the Neighborhood Watch. This film is a classic of British television. If you ever want to watch it in the UK, turn on your TV and scroll the channels until you find the one that is currently playing Hot Fuzz. One of them will be. But we get it. We're caught up. The real question on the tip of everyone's tongues, is it gay, though? To answer that, let's look at the character arc of one Nicholas Angel. Okay, so literally the second thing we learn about this guy after he's a cop is that his relationship ended because he was quote-unquote married to the job. There's a vague line here also about how he needs to find someone who he loves more than he loves his job. Run the clip.
You just can't switch off, Nicholas. And until you find a person you care about more than your job, you never will.
Anyway, and that's his whole character arc. We're told right at the beginning of the film the journey he's about to go on, and the journey any character with that basic premise would go on. He needs to find someone who he loves more than he loves his work. If we do a very good faith reading of this movie, his friendship with Danny matches that perfectly. We can say that he loves Danny as a friend because they watch Point Break together and Nicholas isn't thinking about the job despite having reasonable cause to. Danny is, regardless if I read their relationship, the answer to Nicholas's arc. He's the person who Nicholas has found, who he cares about more than his peace lily or his job or anything else in the whole wide world. Friendship. I'm holding a class. So, the film wants that to be read as a friendship, right? Case closed. They'll go down in history as ultimate besties. What are we still doing here? It definitely appears that way if you're half paying attention and are watching this film for the first time. But I'm a film student and an obsessive, and I've seen this film well over 50 times. Okay, I feel a need to preface this section by saying real life doesn't work the way films do. The dialogue and images isn't a real conversation. It's a construction of a conversation being used to communicate something to us as the audience. You can't analyze a conversation in a movie like it's a real conversation between real people. You have to meet the film on its level. Analyze it not as a conversation, but as a tool to aid a narrative. You might think that's super obvious, but it can be very easy to get caught up in the emotions of a movie and lose a sense of that. For example, in the real world, if a guy bought flowers for his friend, I would think that's a really sweet thing to do for a pal, and I wouldn't necessarily read that as a romantic interaction. If that happened in a film, however, I wouldn't be wrong to think the director might be using that as visual shorthand to convey that the relationship with these characters has a romantic element. That's what filmmaking is. It's using culturally understood signifiers to express a certain point or emotion. So think about that, and then think about the scene in Hot Fuzz where Nicholas finds out that it's Danny's birthday and leaves work to buy a plant for him. That can very easily be read as a romantic act, and I think it would be very fair for a member of the audience to read it that way. That's a smart and informed way to understand what the film is doing. But maybe that's just one little slip on the part of the filmmakers. Maybe they didn't quite consider that one enough, and it's just one strangely romance-coded moment in an otherwise strictly platonically conveyed relationship. It's actually pointless to pretend this is a twist. You know I'm about to tell you half the movie is moments like that. Another particularly notable rom-com moment is Nicholas winning Danny a stuffed bear at a carnival game. A bear the film makes sure to let us know he won specifically for Danny.
Thanks for the monkey. What wasn't it? I won it for you.
There's even a moment when they're sitting on the couch together and Danny very clearly looks at Nicholas's lips before going to get his Point Break DVD. Which is honestly impossible to read as visual shorthand for a friendship moment, and the only reason that wasn't the first thing I used as evidence was because I wanted to show that you can do this for basically any interaction between these characters. There's also, of course, Danny jumping in to take a literal bullet for Nicholas, and Nicholas at the end cradling his body, which is done in a lot of vaguely homoerotic action films and can just be seen as shorthand for that. But honestly, I think it's kind of weird when those films do that as well, so I'm not letting them get away with it either. It's also worth mentioning that in an original draft, Nicholas did actually have a love interest, and when her character was scrapped, they gave a lot of her lines to Danny completely unchanged. Now there's a secret third option that anyone who's seen the movie can and probably will tell you. And that's that, yeah, sure, these moments are steeped in subtextual romance, but they're only doing it as a joke. The famed "it's just a bit" defense. And that's 100% true. Everything I've just told you, all of the romance coding in the way the characters act towards each other, is absolutely and completely played for laughs. Hot Fuzz is, at its core, a satire of police action movies like Point Break, homoeroticism and all. Have you ever watched Hot Fuzz and been 3/4 through the final action sequence and thought, this is going on just slightly too long? Well, that was an intentional choice. Someone making the film notice that action films tend to have final sequences that go on just slightly too, very much too long, and thought, well, we should do a play on that for the movie we're making, which is a parody of that movie that I just watched and didn't like the final action sequence of. You might hear them think, hey, that's pretty smart, but you're still just left with a slightly too long action sequence. It can lampshade that flaw by saying it's for the sake of satire, but it's still kind of just a flaw of the movie. It can lampshade the central relationship of the movie reading as subtextually romantic by saying it's just satirizing gay joke. But the romance is still in the subtext of the movie. It's not a very good gay joke, but it's tied into the only part of the movie that we're meant to be taking seriously. Nicholas's character arc is real, and we're meant to care about that. But the catharsis of that arc is just a joke. Taking the joke seriously ruins the joke, and finding the joke funny ruins the story. It's a self-defeating cycle that, once noticed, kind of breaks the film. But also it doesn't, right? Because the friendship is still there, and that part is completely intact. It's just the gay part that's the joke. If you don't take that part seriously, then the movie holds up completely fine. And I still have a problem with that. It's just that it doesn't feel very nice, does it? For the very fabric of a movie to hinge entirely on seeing gay people inherently as a joke. That's what it really is, isn't it? You can hide behind it being clever satire, but it's really just treating the idea of a queer relationship as something to be laughed at. Not saying the creative team set out with the goal of laughing at gay people. I just think it literally never occurred to them that putting a queer narrative in this film could be anything but a joke. It could have been so good, though. They could have kept the satire and the gay jokes, but then done something actually unique and interesting with them, and made an actual love story. That would complete Nicholas's character arc in a satisfying way. It would make the jokes feel less uncaringly cruel. Just be a good story, a better story maybe, than what we got. If only a queer relationship could be seen by the creators as something serious and normal. Anyway, that's my Hot Fuzz take. I still love the film. It's one of the best films ever made. She's been nagging at me. In a fun and cool way that is normal. Thank you for watching the video. Final, S1 presentation slide. Thanks for listening. Go home now. Bye.